Okay, this is our 7.1 activity 1. So the first thing that we have to understand is we're in this lesson, we're going to figure out how we can find the dimensions of a square, and then in a future activity also a circle when we're given its area. So the most important part that we have to understand about this is that when we multiply a number by itself, it's known as the square of the number. So you guys have worked with like numbers like this where we've squared a number or taken it to the power of 2. That 4 squared is the same as doing 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay, so what we're going to be working with in this chapter quite a bit is doing the square root of numbers. So to undo a square, we have to find the square root of that number. So the square root symbol, also known as the radical sign, kind of looks like a division symbol, but it kind of has like a check mark at the end. So we have the square root of 16 is the same as, well, what number times itself equals 16? That would be 4 squared. And then your squared and square root cancel each other out. So that's how we end up with our 4. So we're ultimately, when we have a square root, we're trying to find what number times itself would give us the number that's under that radical sign. Okay, and yes, you do have a square root key on your calculator. In this chapter, we're going to be kind of working with some ways that we can go through and solve it if we didn't have a calculator. And for the first part, we'll actually use a calculator to help us a little bit. So we're going to go through and find the square root symbol. So it says use a square root symbol to write the side length of the square, then find the square root. Check your answer by multiplying. So here it says sample. We've got this S equals the square root of 121. So S is representing our side length. So we're trying to figure out, notice when we find the area of a square, we would do length times width or base times height. So S times S would give us that S squared has to equal 121. So our square root. So if we want to figure out what S is, or in other words, it's not the square root, it would be actually just 121. If we want to figure out what S is, we have to find the square root of 121. We have to find what number times itself, so S times S, is going to give us 121. Okay, so if we go through and just trial and error, just knowing our basic facts, well, 10 times 10 is 100, and 121 is more than that. So let's try 11 times 11. And yes, you could use your calculator to kind of help you out with this. This is going to give us 121 exactly. So what number did we take times itself? We took 11 times itself. So here our side lengths are 11 by 11. Okay, and our label would be feet because it was feet squared. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing in this lesson. So I'm going to work with you guys in this activity on the ones that are a little more complicated, and then you guys will do the ones that are more whole numbers by yourself. So I'm going to have you jump to letter D, and we have the square root of 361. Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to actually trial and error some different numbers. So 361, yes, I know you could use your square root key, but let's see, 12 times 12 is 144. That's way too low. Let's try maybe 17 times 17. And we're just going to check to see, is that bigger than 361 or smaller? So we're going to take a number and we're going to multiply it by itself twice. So 7 times 7 is 49. And then 7 plus 4 is going to give me 11. Bring down my 0, 7 and a 1. So 17 times 17 is 289. That's pretty close, but we need to get to 361. So I'm not going to want to jump too far. I'm going to try 18 times 18. So 8 times 8 is 64. 8 plus 6 gives me 14. Bring down the 0. I have an 8, and then 1 times 1 is 1. That gives me 324. It has to be 19 times 19, or 19 squared. And yes, you could use your calculator. It's just that I want you to understand the process. That's why I'm showing you this longhand. So 9 times 9 is 81. 9 plus 8 is 17. Bring down the 0. 9, 1. We get 1, 6, 3. So there's our number. Our S equals 19 miles. Okay? So we did a little trial and error, and if you want to use your calculator to help you, that's fine. I really would like you to avoid using the square root key right now. Okay, let's jump to letter F. So here we have 2.89. Okay, so this one, yes, if you want to go ahead and use your calculator, use it to do some trial and error. I just don't want you to go through and use the square root key. So I'm going to pull a calculator out here really quick. Okay, so we have 289, or sorry, 2.89. Come on. Guess my computer's not wanting to work with me here. There we go. Okay, so if I just try a decimal number, if I was going to say this was just 289, well, on my previous one, didn't I have one that was 289? Let's jump back really quick and see if I can get it to, there's all my work. So 289 was right here. 17 times 17 gave me that 289 since I had already trial and errored. Now I know that we're not doing 289, but we are doing 2.89. So instead of 17 times 17, let's try 1.7 times 1.7. And that does give us 2.89. So this is going to be 1.7 for each of these. Okay, take note, I was able to go through and use a whole number example because that was 2.89. I could think of it as 289 and then see what number times itself would give me 289 and then work off of that, testing the decimal place. All right, let's try one more. Letter G, I believe, has a fraction. So here, when we're working fractions, really the way that we kind of want to look at this would be square root of 4 over the square root of 9. So what number times itself equals 4? Well, that would be 2. What number times itself would equal 9? That would be 3. So the square root of 4/9 is going to be 2/3. And our label would be feet. Okay, just because it's a fraction, don't think of it as a fraction. We kind of break that rational number down, that fraction format, into two smaller problems, one on top of the other. So the square root of 4 over the square root of 9 instead of thinking of it as the square root of 4/9. Okay, so that's it for activity 1. Good luck with this, and you'll have to continue doing B, C, and E on your own and check your answers on the answer key.